Anyone know how we go about sketching this function first of all? What were we thinking? So we went straight to the form of y equals a x plus b squared plus c. Is that what we went to? Yeah. Yep. And what do those a, b, c stand for?
C's up and down.
The c's up and down. What do you mean by that? You're right. But what?
On the y.
Yep. So if I've got my axis here, I'm just going to draw a little one here. The c determines how far up and down. What do you mean by how far up and down it goes?
It's -2. It's c's -2.
Okay, so where does it normally start? If I had no c though. So I already know what? Well, yep, so where's it starting?
It's up to 0.
Okay, but now on my function here, so I'm taking it what, down to am I? Or up to?
Up to down.
Who thinks up? Who thinks down?
Maybe it's opposite.
I can see one of them is opposite. You're thinking correctly. And if you think about it from a point of view, ask yourself, what has x got to equal to let that be 0? -3. Does that make sense? So try and figure your way through it. Understand what you're doing. This is going to take it down to, as you said. So we're going to go down to, I'm just going to put little values there, and we're going to go -3 or +3? -3, because we want, again, what will x equal when that equals 0? Oh good, we've done. Put a little dot in the graph, we've graphed that function. No, we haven't. Good. I'm glad that we said that. It'll have sine or cos in it. If it's a sine or cos. But it's not, I'm not trying to... The sine and cos has a sine x or a sine bx. You could have a function like that, but for sine functions they'll have a... they just use a, b and c a lot to describe dilation, horizontal, vertical shifts. Cool? So here, we're not halfway done, but we found what? What have we found? Yeah, what do you mean by origin? What happens at the origin? For a quadratic, what happens at the origin? Turns around. What do we call that? Turning point. TP. Okay. So, straight up we've identified that our turning point equals what? Yeah, well let's give me a general form for this, for every function. Oh, it's our x function, it's an x value and our y value. C is one of them, so C is the y, the x. Yep, so is it just normal C or negative C?
Just normal.
No.
Because C equals -2 here, doesn't it? Yep, so our turning point for all of these functions occurs at -b, +c. Does that make sense? So because here we've got +3, we know that b is actually equal to -3, and because we've got +c, c is -2, we know that the c is equal to? Is it positive? -2. Cool. So there's our turning point. Are we done or not? What else should we find? Other points. What are the other points? What are some points of interest?
The top ones.
Where it cuts the y.
What do we call that? X and y intercepts. That's always a good start. You can find any point and connect your dots from there and graph it, but I always like to find the x and the y intercept because they're easy and we have to do it quite a lot anyway. So how do we find our x intercept? With a black pen preferably. I'll do it over here. So I'll find... It's always a good idea to state what you're looking for. Why would that be a good idea? Let's think more about our positioning and our marks. Communication. Okay, give yourself every opportunity to give yourself communication marks. Also, it's a good way to help you find where you've made a mistake. So find x-intercept, what do? Let y equals 0. Okay, so we've got 0 equals, we've got no a value, x plus 3 squared minus 2. Can anyone tell me how we should go about that? Someone who maybe did 10 physics who can tell me how we should rearrange that equation. What, do we just move stuff? I could extend the brackets. I'm not going to here because I don't need to. You could though. It's definitely a strategy you could use.
Plus 2 by sides.
So why do I plus 2 not get rid of the other stuff first?
Square root.
Is there a process you're following, or are you just randomly selecting operations?
Just makes it easy.
Yeah, I know it makes it easier. Why?
Then you just have to worry about the brackets and when you expand the brackets.
A good process to follow is reverse BIMDAS, and I'm going to put the video I did for my year 10s up for you guys as well. Well, I can't spell. Reverse BIDMAS is number 1, and the second one is we don't just cancel, we use opposite operations. So, reverse BIDMAS says we attack what first? Should we attack the brackets, the index, or the subtraction? How do we undo a subtraction? We don't chuck it over the other side. We add 2 to both sides, okay? This is a big, you need to, I know that it'll work for most of you and you'll get it right most of the time, but you need to ensure that you're following a mathematical process, and just trust me when I say if you don't cancel, if you just move stuff, you will make mistakes. I spent 10 years or 11 years of my schooling career guessing what operation I did. I'm not joking. I got C's all the way through year 11 because I didn't know to cancel stuff out and use opposite operation. I just used to throw it over and guess. So if I was rearranging that in year 11, there's a 50% chance I'd say plus 2 and about a 50% chance I'd say minus 2. So you need to make sure you're following that process. How do we undo a, what should we attack next, the brackets or the square root, or square? Square. So I've got 2 equals x plus 3 squared. How do I undo that? Both sides. Oh. Now, what do I do? Is there something anyone want to pull me up on here? Is there something that someone wants to pull me up?
Can it still be in the square root?
I'm happy to leave it in the square root. You can. Yeah, but I could also make this point 1.41. The value is 1.41, but there's something about the square root that I want to... How many x-intercepts are we expecting? How many times do we expect this function to cut the x-axis? Twice, correct? How many answers am I going to get? So
No, isn't it positive negative?
good. So square roots have assigned a positive and negative value because either negative 1.41 or positive 1.41 squared will give you 2. Does that make sense?
So can you put it as a decimal set button?
Yep, you could. Yep, you could. I just, when you deal with maths at uni, you're not allowed to use calculators, so you get used to using...
Oh, you're allowed to use calculator.
No, but you're used to using root 2 and stuff. You just leave it in 3 plus or minus root 2. Makes sense?
Yep.
So what I would then do, how do I get rid of the 3? Minus 3 to both sides. Okay, so now we've got x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 2, which is going to be about negative 4.4 and negative 1.6. If you put those in your calculator, that's what you get. So what we have here, 1.6 Happy with that? Should we have anything else that we need to find? How many y-intercepts are we expecting? 1. Good. So again, I'm going to follow the same process. Find y int. Let x equal 0. I want to find y, so y equals 0 plus 3 squared minus 2. What's 0 plus 3? Squared? 9 minus 2. Y equals 7. So we'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we'd put a little dot there. And then we'd connect the dots. I'll answer that phone. You guys can do that from there. Hey Tracy, don't you? Yeah, it is good. I do. Certainly. I'll send him now. Alright, bye. Yeah, can you just head them to Mrs. McLeod's office? Just for 5 minutes. She wants to see about a subject. Well, I bet this thing's following me too. That's off the setting. Oh no, it's good, it's on that. Okay. All good?